my fellow crafters. Today my project is a little bit different. I decided to have a change from doing card making. Yes, it is still a paper project, but it's something that I haven't done for many years. I haven't hurt my hand, don't worry. This is actually for using with my iPad. It stops warm hands sticking and pulling on the surface. Now this happens to be a little hack. You can buy specialist gloves for doing this, and they're relatively expensive, and I don't need to use it that often. And so I looked in the fancy dress section of our Chinese shop, and lo and behold, they had some small black gloves. They happen to be rather stretchy because they're thin things, and all I did was I chopped most other fingers down, and so far it hasn't actually frayed. I am talking about paper cutout dolls. Now when I was a kid, I had a few goes at paper cutout dolls, but they weren't particularly exciting, and you had to cut them out by hand. However, if you happen to have a scan and cut, you can send these sorts of things to your printer, just scan it in the machine, and it's going to cut it out for you. Ah, brilliant. Now, this is sized for an A4 sheet, so to give you a sense of the scale, there we go, you can see the outline of the page now. And I have done a few different file types of this. And what I've done is I have coloured. Ta-da! So I have this one, and I have another model, and I have done them in two different skin tones. I have not done the things like eyelashes or anything like that, just give them a bit of blush on the cheeks. I've left them fairly basic so that you can do what you want to do with them. You can colour them with alcohol markers, or use the coloured print, or use the plain white one. If I take this off, if I switch this off, this is a PNG. Now if you happen to have an iPad and you use Procreate, this makes it very easy to colour in whatever colour you fancy. So I'm going to put in another layer in here just to demonstrate what I mean. I am going to put this layer on top of my base layer. I want a clipping mask on there, so whoops, yeah, it's got a clipping mask, so that will mask to the layer below. And what happens is go for, yeah, do that. And if I then choose something like a soft airbrush and I put the size up, no matter where I paint, it will only go over the area that I have already got pixels coloured in, and I can undo that. Now the reason it's doing that is because when I made the file, what I did was I drew this in concepts, I put it into shortcuts a lot, and I basically did an outline trace. And then the outline trace I outlined and filled with pure white, so that the pixels are there in the PNG for the program to recognize. If it didn't have any pixels in, say, the leg area or anything like that, then you couldn't use the clipping mask in the same way. So this means you can color this electronically however you like. Probably in other programs as well that use clipping masks. So if you don't have Procreate, if you're using something else, you can probably do it in Inkscape or whatever. I've no idea because I generally don't use it. However, I've also, as I said, done a couple. Let's take this layer out, and that layer is a clipping mask. There we go. I have made it so that there are a couple of coloured images where the skin is just basically coloured in. If you want to print it like that, you can. I have done it in PNG, so you can alter it. And I've also done the file as a PDF. The PDF automatically saves the size of things, so it will be the size that I've done it. PNGs and things like that don't necessarily have that information in them. Now, if you're going to do this electronically, then what you need to do is add another layer. And for example, I could, let's go for just a normal monoline type thing, okay? And I can actually draw a hat and colour it in. Whoops, I didn't have the line closed. Okay, but you get the idea. And then that is on a separate layer, so I can then just print off that layer and send it to be either traced or put it in the scan and cut, and it's going to just automatically see the lines and it'll cut around the outside of it, which is brilliant. Now I'm just going to hide these things a minute so you can see. Now the one thing that you would want to do if you are going to print this off and use it for clothing, you want to just draw a little tab or two, so tabs on the shoulders of garments, tab on the top of the hat, etc. Just as you would if you were doing this manually. Now you could cheat and use a tacky glue on the back of your pieces, and of course you can dress the doll exactly as you'd like. Now if you're going to do this manually, there's nothing difficult about that. You just want to print off the model that you want, and then you can either use a very light tack tape to tack the image onto, for example, a laptop screen, and then you can trace around and do drawing that way. Or you can use a light box, or if you're desperate, you can tape it to a window so that you've got the shape there to trace around for garment sizing. So this is my print, and I'm going to add a little bit of detail here. So I'm going to put in some eyelashes, and I want to put some colour on the lips. So I have just a few colours here, as you can see, nothing too over the top. Yeah, nothing too over the top, Sandra. I'm going for a very fine point on this because it's a very small area. And I'm just going to do some matching fingernail polish. There is some colour on the fingertips here, but I'm just exaggerating it. The reason I'm doing this now is because it's a good idea to actually laminate this. Because if you laminate it now, you can then send it to the cutter and it will cut out the laminated shape for you, which would be really good. It gives it some protection, gives it some added strength. I've now laminated the drawing, so it's nice and protected, it's quite stiff. Now I'm going to try putting this as it is through the scan and cut and see if it will recognise the outside lines properly. This is the result of my cut. It's done pretty well, and the way that I scanned this was using black and white scanning rather than colour. For some reason colour just didn't pick everything up, but the black and white scan did. But make sure this is the correct size before you cut it out, or before you print it I should say, because you may want to make it bigger. I'm not making it that large, but you may want to make a bigger version. And it's laminated front and back, so it's pretty well protected, and it's definitely a bit firmer than it would be if it was just plain card. In case you're wondering what I'm going to do with the leftover laminated stock, I'm actually going to use this for things like paint palettes and glue mixing and all that sort of stuff. I'm back in Procreate again, and what I did was I went to the gallery and I duplicated my original design, solely because in case anything happens, I know I still have the original unsullied. So I'm going to add another layer to this because I have the body colour layer, which I can switch off there or switch on. Okay, so I'm going to add another layer to that, and now I can start having a bit of fun with the clothing. Now I'm using black. Now that's not because I'm going to keep the clothing black, it's because I can see what I've done quite clearly. You can see what I've done, and then when I've done the basic shape of the garment, I can fill it in with another colour, and I can do all the fancy stuff on top of that. So I think I'm going to go for something with a princess type neckline. got my finished drawing with the clothing done, and in order to actually be able to print off just the clothing, what I do is I go into the layers and I switch off the view of the actual body, and you can see that I have just the clothing. Now I can go into the individual layers. Now I've got the back of the hair because that's actually going to go behind the doll, and then I have the front of the hair which will go on the front, and I can select my various pieces and I can move them around. It's amazing how much time you can while away doing this. You might notice the dress there has changed colour quite dramatically, and that is really easy to do if you're doing things electronically. All I have to do is pick a colour from there, drag it over to there, and poof. I have spent hours and hours playing with this just because I'm having fun, and I've now got to the stage where I think I've got enough that I can print it off and it will at least show what this kind of thing can do. I did laminate it completely, you know, both sides. And I did do 2 passes to cut through this to make sure that I did get it all cut out. And of course I've got another doll because I chose to put another one on that sheet. Certainly a lot easier than fussy cutting, so this is something that the Scan and Cut is obviously very well equipped to do. You might even say this is what the Scan and Cut is really for. Now I did slightly miscalculate on this one because I forgot that there is an interior hole, as indeed I did with the little bag. But if I'm absolutely desperate, I could always fussy cut those holes out. I could possibly even scan them in again and put the cut line in, but can I be bothered? Probably not. There's some socks and some more shoes. Shoes are very, very tiny because the feet aren't very big. Those are probably going to get lost, but yeah, what can I say? I did a winter sweater and a winter skirt, and some t-shirts and a shorter skirt. If you wanted to do trousers for your doll, do the other doll that I've done, which has got the leg in that direction rather than just standing upright, because there isn't room to actually put a gap in there for the trouser legs really. I could have my little dress there, hair that goes around the back, so obviously that needs to be stuck on the back of the head, not the front. And then the front with the little tiara bit would go there. I've done 2 hairstyles because I've got this short bob type one as well, which alters the look completely. So yeah, as an experiment it has worked out pretty well. I'm pleased with the result. You don't have to spend hours doing it. That was just me playing because I didn't have anything else in particular to do with myself. I will leave the files in PNG format and in PDF, so you have a choice whether you do it manually or whether you do it by machine or whatever. That's up to you. And I will give you 2 different skin tones and 2 different forms. I said the other form has got the leg out to the side, but is otherwise the same. Okay, thanks for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'll see you again soon. Take care.